and welcome back to Gowerton Parkway. You join me today for what's another layout update. It's been a little while since the last one and I've got through a little bit of work since then, so I will talk you through that. Actually, I think the first place to pick up from is where we left off at the end of the last video, and that was a discussion around what to use the ex-nuclear flask sidings for on the layout. Now, I had a lot of suggestions from various viewers, and thank you for taking the time to send messages in to me, etc., and let me know what you thought I should do. But what I've opted to do with this area is I'm going to use it as a stabling point. One of my major areas of inspiration when modelling this layout and beginning to model layouts in South Wales was Godfrey Road in Newport, and that was an old stabling yard. I had a couple of sidings that locomotives would be rested on overnight, stored up, etc., etc., when they were out of use, and I want to create a facility similar to that. So I'll show you now. I haven't actually really done any work. All I've done is rework the static grass around here to try and tidy it up and make it look a lot neater. If you compare the state of it now versus an older video, you will probably notice slight improvement. And then if I pan round here, you'll get an idea of what this will look like when it's filled up with locomotives. I have also worked on the grass area to the right of the concrete hard standing pad, and I have began to integrate the backdrop. So the embankment I've got over at the back next to the new motorway bridge has been completely stripped back of all of the previous scenery and regrassed, etc., and I'm quite pleased with how that's looking. I now need to physically blend it in with the motorway. That should be done. There's a few jobs to finish on that motorway bridge as well, but you'll see soon enough what that'll look like, as that shouldn't take me too long to complete. Now, this new stabling point, as it were, is far from complete. Sorry, I'm probably going to have some sort of prefabricated building there, and then we'll just have a load of sort of general clutter around this area. I'm not sure if I will give it a separate name, like the Newport one used to be called Godfrey Road, whether I'll call that something separate or whether I'll just leave it as Gowerton Parkway stabling point. But in essence, what I want to be able to do is have some locos stabled over there. My fleet of locos is getting slightly out of control now. I've got a lot of locomotives, and another opportunity somewhere on the layout to actually display these and show these off is really welcome. So this will be a good solution, and I've got the main lines in the background, so you'll be able to see things passing by there as they go. So if I just swing around now, talk you through a little bit more some plans that I've got. It's down at the far end. We previously discussed the this tunnel area here. That I'm going to get rid of that. I don't like it. I don't really know why I put it in there. I think the problem I had when I started this layout was I was quite new to the hobby in a way, as I sort of had long gaps from it, and it was my first real attempt at building a layout, and there's so many different little things on here I don't like that need improving, redoing, ripping up, restarting, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm really going to try and get this layout up to scratch now. It's funny because when I look back through the magazine shoot of Gowerton Parkway that was had a couple of years ago, I look at it and I think this layout was definitely not good enough to get in a magazine. So I want to really try and push it up to the standards of my new stuff, my newer stuff, and see how good I can get this looking. So that's this side of the layout. The station itself I am happy with. I do like that. I don't think there's much that I want to do with that, to be honest. Now, I was going to rebuild the buildings, as I mentioned in a previous video, but to be honest with you, the amount of time that's going to take up is just not worth the effort for me. I can focus my efforts elsewhere on the layout, and that still stacks up okay. It looks decent enough. And what I will do once I've finished all the other work on the layout that I want to do, if I fancy revisiting that area, I will potentially revisit that. So we'll move on to the next segment of the layout. Okay, so we're back over at the town scene area now. I have done absolutely nothing with this. To be honest with you, it's looking a little bit rough around the edges in places, and I think probably the best solution for this, I'm not inclined to go ripping it all up and starting it again. For me, this forms a secondary part of the layout. It's not something that I'm overly interested in, to be honest. The layout's about the railway and seeing the trains run and the rolling stock, etc, etc. So to have this at a decent standard, which I think it is now, that'll probably just about do for me. And I think probably what I'll do is just tidy up a few of the roads, get a few more cars in there, add a few more people, and maybe if I can be bothered, see if I can put lights in some of these buildings and get the street lights working, which would be a major task. But luckily these two I don't know what you call them, units here for the town, they come off quite easily, so I could take those downstairs somewhere a little bit easier to work on, and yeah, see where we go from there. Okay, so this area of the layout is the corner that comes out from underneath the town scene. In effect, I want to completely redo this. I've never been quite convinced by this retaining wall. It looks all right, but it's kind of just there because I didn't know what else to put there. What I'm thinking of doing is actually having a little bit of a hillside embankment, something that looks a little bit more natural, and try and get that looking a bit more interesting, because at the moment it does just look like a foam retaining wall that's been put there because there wasn't anything much else to put there. Another thing that I need to do in this area, I'm thinking of doing, if I just try and explain what I mean by showing you on the camera. If we have a little look back over to the station area, the line that runs just behind that dapple bubble car that you can see runs all the way underneath the town scene, and it comes out through here. It joins back into the main line underneath the tunnel. Now what I want to do is make an adjustment here. As you know, that line that runs next to the dapple bubble car can run directly into the stabling point area that I've now decided I'm going to have. What I want to do is put in place, let's have a look, see if I can bring the camera up, put in place another point here, which I've sort of loosely offered up, a curve point, and then there would be effectively another line that runs off here into there, underneath the tunnel, and linking back in with effectively what is a third running line under here. This is probably quite hard to understand what I'm saying, but there's a third running line that joins to the main line in here. There's a set of points here and it joins into the main line. So what I'm looking to do is actually see about running a line direct, putting another set of points in so that I can run stuff directly around that loop and into the freight yard, which is around here obviously, without actually touching the main line. This will give me a bit more flexibility, and I'm hoping that it will work out well with what I want to do and how I want to run the layout. So we'll move on to the next section and we'll have a look and see where we are with that. Okay, so we're looking at the fueling point area of the layout, which sits on the same part of the layout as the traction maintenance depot. This is all going to be redone. The scenery is going to remain exactly the same. I want to lay everything out exactly as it is now, but this hard standing is rubbish. It's all sort of bubbling up and going weird, and that's basically because I didn't plan it very well. When I first started the layout, again, as I've mentioned, I was quite new to the hobby, and these are areas that just need redoing. So I'm going to use the same approach that I use for my traction maintenance depot with the concrete there. And what I would do effectively with that, I can make a video of me doing that if you like me to, and show you the steps that I go through to do it. I don't normally do videos like that. I normally build something and then say, look, I built something, here it is. And the reason I do that is because it takes up less time for me. I've got a busy work and personal life, and it really does take a lot of time to make and produce those videos. But I do think that there is an advantage in me producing something like that for this traction maintenance depot, so that I can pass on the knowledge, and hopefully other people will benefit from it too. So this all needs to come up. As I mentioned, I'm not happy with it, and I haven't been for a long while. The scenery and the layout of it, etc., all the little detailing bits there, yeah, fine, they'll stay where they are, but it'll all be on a new hard standing surface, and I'll show you how I go about doing that in a future video. Okay, so one of the other major things that I've worked on this month, you may notice in this shot, is the back scene. There was previously a photographic back scene in place, and it was very, very shallow, and it didn't offer much of a backdrop for filming and photographing. I've never been a fan of it, so what I decided to do was to make just a plain blue back scene, and this spans the full 26-foot length of the loft, and it's literally just got hedges and things backed up onto it. The reason I wanted to do this was because one of the main parts of the layout that I enjoy is actually photographing the work that I've done, and always before, these loft rafters were just such a pain. You could just see everything and they look horrible and they spoiled it. So now at least there's a little bit of a neutral backdrop. There's still some work that needs doing on it. It needs touching up in various places. I've started to paint some of the loft beams on the roof here, so you can see the sky blue has been extended up there, so I need to tidy that up. I always wondered what would happen if I moved out of this house, pulled the layout down, because whoever has this house afterwards, there's just going to be random paint all over this loft, and they'll have no idea why it was like it, but there's just going to be random loft beams painted blue. But there we go. Anyway, that's what I've done, and what I'll do now, I'll get a bit of a lower camera angle, and hopefully you'll see the benefit of what I've done. Reason I've not gone photographic with the back scene is purely because it's a nightmare to chop it around those rafters that we've got there. It was hard enough cutting the wood. That was a really frustrating job. I'm by no means a master carpenter or whatever you want to call it, so it does the job enough. But yeah, I'll take some lower shots now and you can see what I mean. Okay, so we're a bit lower with the camera now, and hopefully you can see the advantage of having the blue back scene. It does make photography a little bit easier and there's less rafters on show, etc. You see at the far end there's some diagonal beams. I still need to try and box those out a little bit more with wood and paint those, but that sort of is still a work in progress. But yeah, I am more or less happy with that. Like I said, it's by no means the most beautiful solution, but it's a neutral backdrop. I can now take shots of things like the TMD here and have a neutral background. Again, the beam that runs over the top of the TMD, I need to try and box that out a bit more, but I think you'll get the idea. And if I pop over a little bit closer to the TMD now, we'll have a quick scoot around that. Not much has changed over there. That was one of the areas that I focused on fairly recently, which is quite in a complete-ish state. There you go. I think you can see there it does slightly improve your view across the TMD. There's a gap there that needs filling as mentioned, but even panning back down the layout there, just having that neutral backdrop tidies it up. It certainly looks a lot neater in the loft. Yeah, as I mentioned, not much else has happened with the TMD. I will just move a little bit further down the loft and I will show you another shot back over the TMD and try and point out the one or two small things I have done. Okay, so you can see here, this is new, as is this grass. Track here still needs weathering, that's a mess, and I've got to sort out some more grass along this side. I've started to put a little bit of scenic work into this, and what I'll do now, I'll just give you a slightly higher elevation of the depot. So that's pretty much the depot as is at the minute. I've got a few nice bits of detailing in there. I'm gonna have to continue to work on it and get it looking 100% perfect, but I think it's more or less where I need it to be. And then the back scene continues all the way down here. Now you remember going on to these new boards that no work has been done. There's been a slight change to that, and this is one of the reasons that I put that back scene in, is so that I could start to work on it. So I'll pan around and I'll show you what I've managed to start so far. There you go, a little bit of hillside, and a cut in that goes down into the tunnel, which forms the scenic break. Now this is a long way off of finished yet, but it's coming along okay. The back scene was absolute key to being able to actually do this, because obviously the hill is formed right up against it. So the hill itself has been made out of polystyrene, which has been cut using one of those hot wire cutter devices, which is probably one of the most fun things that I've used as a model railway tool. It's quite therapeutic, just chopping up polystyrene with that and melting it, but it allows you to layer up polystyrene and get it to a good shape. That's what I've got here then, and what I'll do, if I just move down, I'll give you some more shots of this and explain some of the other techniques I've gone through. So here we are again overlooking the new cutting area. I've only done the far side so far. If we have a look there, you'll see, and I've only got part the way down the embankment. This is so time consuming and uses up a hell of a lot of modelling materials, so I've currently run out of both time and modelling supplies, so I need to get that resolved, and then I can continue all the way down here. I think that knits in quite nicely with the rest of it. If you look at the far end where that retaining wall was that I mentioned, I think that this hillside is going to blend in better if I have another hillside at the other end, get rid of that retaining wall. I think the whole thing will blend in a lot better, and also it gives me another excuse to use that cool little melty polystyrene tool, which I had a lot of fun with. I'll pan back round. And you can see there I've started to go across the top of the tunnel portal. I need to come up with a bit of a solution to black out the back of the tunnel portal so it looks like it's going into a darker area. Tunnel portal was a woodcut kit made by KS Laser Design. So let me just get in a little bit closer on that and I'll show you that. So there's the tunnel portal. It still needs a little bit more work from a painting perspective, but I've got the base layers down and I think it's looking okay so far. That's quite a nice kit to use. So if I just show you how that knits in with the rest of it, you get a different angle now of the cut-in. I think this is starting to look pretty good, to be honest. This sort of scenery is much more akin to the standard that I want for the rest of the layout. There were areas of Gowerton Parkway that have been, as I mentioned, they leave a lot to be desired, as they were done a long time ago. And I've improved my modelling skills a little bit since then, so I really want to use that across the entire layout. So yeah, that's that. This near side here, we haven't actually got anything on here yet. What I'm thinking of doing, I'm going to keep the vegetation on this side to slightly more minimal level than that side. Reason being is this is a good place to watch trains go by from, and I don't really want to obstruct the view. I want to be able to photograph trains going by, film trains going by, and just sit up in the loft and enjoy watching trains go by. So I don't want that cut out too much, to be honest. So yeah, I think you'll agree quite a lot of work's been done. You can have a look now, you can appreciate more the full span of that back scene and how annoying it would have been for me to cut that and paint all that, but it's done and dusted now, and it's in, and it's allowed me to progress with the layout, and yeah, I think things are looking okay. So I'll just take the camera off of the tripod now and just zoom in on a few of the scenic effects on the embankment to show you. I'll just have a quick pan over here so you can see what's going on. This has all primarily been done with sea foam and various layers of scatter, etc. It's just come about by experimenting to get different effects. I think vegetation is something that previously I really struggled with, and I think it's looking a bit better now. It looks quite natural, and it doesn't look too like it's just woodland scenic stuff plonked down, hopefully. So that's where we are, and I will move on to the next part of it. Next area of the layout to look at is the fiddle yard, and nothing has happened here. The fiddle yard is what it is. It's a fiddle yard, and it's full of rolling stock. There are a couple of new pieces of stock in here now, which I will introduce you to shortly. Now, prior to this channel being in existence, I went through this ridiculous phase of modelling bang up to date modern image stuff. So I had a lot of Colas rail, network rail, DB Schenker, well, horrible stuff. I don't really know why I did it, but I did. And one of the things I did, one of the ridiculous things I did, was I had a Virgin HST set, which I sold. It was probably one of the most stupid decisions I made, and I regretted it ever since I'd done it. Luckily, I've now managed to replace that set. This set is a standard Hornby release from quite a while ago. I managed to pick it up at quite a reasonable price from the Model Railway Emporium. So I will zoom in now, show you the power car. This power car is 43196, named the Newspaper Society, founded 1836, I think it says. Can't quite see, it's out of my line of sight. Yeah, so had this set, weathered it up quite subtly, nice bit of streaking down the side. Now, interestingly, when I purchased this set, one of the power cars came and there was a crack in one of the body shells, unfortunately. So luckily I managed to find a replacement body shell online, and it was this particular power car again, so I've had to rename and renumber it just so that I've got something different. Gentleman at the Model Railway Emporium just refunded me, I think, enough money for me to be able to buy this replacement body off of eBay, so I could keep the set. Anyway, I'll show you the other power car that I've got now. Okay, so this is the power car. Again, this started out as a 43196, but it has been renamed and renumbered. I decided I wanted to go for a namer on this one, just so I could get a nice etch plate on there. This one is called the Institution of Mechanical Engineers anniversary something to something years. Again, can't read it, it's too far out of my line of sight and my eyes are obviously not good enough. But yeah, this one again has been lightly weathered, and this is the dummy power car. Currently I've got a rake of 5 coaches that I use between the 2 power cars, and that is to represent the old Virgin Challenger services, which were running towards the introduction of the Virgin Voyager sets. They use those shorter formations. I don't know whether it was to test out the length of them or the capacity, but anyway, they run in shorter formations, so that's what I've got at the moment. I've gone for that because that's what I can afford at the moment, and I've only found the certain amount of coaches, but I probably will expand it to a full 8 car set over time. Okay, now this one is a bit of a bonus. I've got a third Virgin power car. This is numbered 43067, and it, as you can see, is a buffer beam variant. Now this is the aforementioned previous body shell that was cracked and damaged. So what I did, I filled in the body with some model filler and resprayed the red, and it is now as good as invisible. I've put all the relevant decals on, and I've personally adapted the front of this to be one of the buffer beam variants of the power car. What I'll do, I'll just try and adjust the camera so that you can get a better view on the work that's been done at the front end of that loco. Okay, so here you can see the front of the loco and the buffer beam that's been installed. This has all been scratch built, and I've carefully followed this from pictures. This locomotive isn't complete as of yet. It needs a coat of satin varnish. It's still in the gloss from when I did the transfers, and then that'll actually be weathered down. Now this is actually on a powered chassis. I got lucky actually, and thankfully Richard over at New Junction had a spare power car of an East Midlands trained ones that he wasn't using anymore, and he couldn't get to run properly and was superfluous to his requirements. But I've mounted this locomotive on that, and I have serviced, dismantled and repaired the chassis, and this now runs. So it's a second power car that I've got to pull the HST rake, and it's turning into a bit of a favourite actually. something a bit different compared to what anybody else has. So I'm quite proud of this actually, for considering I'm quite ham-fisted when it comes to stuff like that. This has turned out quite well. Obviously it's always a little bit daunting taking a saw to a Hornby model, but I figured the body was already cracked and needed repairing, and I didn't really have much to lose, so I sawed it off, and it went well enough for me to continue with the repair and seek the chassis. So thanks to Richard at New Junction for helping me with that one. This you'll be able to see running around the layout quite regularly, because it's becoming a bit of a favourite. Another recent addition to the fleet has been this locomotive, and this is a Backman Class 37 number 37055, and it was originally named Rail Celebrity. This has had a lot of work done to it. This is a Reps limited edition locomotive. Now, I've been wanting to purchase this for a long time, but the price point was in at £170, which I find a bit unreasonable, considering this locomotive over here is pretty much the exact same locomotive from a body perspective, etc., and that has cost me a hell of a lot less. I think I picked that one up for about £75–80 when it was around. So to pay that extra money for this was a little bit it was something that I didn't want to do really, but it was a locomotive that I did really want, and luckily my patience told, and I managed to find an issue with it on eBay, and I got it for 130 quid. All right, it's not a massive saving, but it is a bit of a saving. So I'll talk you through what I've done to this, because as I mentioned, it's quite a lot different to the standard release. First, nameplate has been removed on the locomotive, and it's been painted over with an obliteration patch per the prototype. The prototype for this locomotive that I'm working from is circa 2000, when it was running in the Rumney Valley. It was running in the Rumney Valley on a set of 4 Mark II coaches, and it was a working I wanted to try and recreate, so that's why I've gone for that era. The overhead warning flashes have been reverted to the more modern type ones per my prototype. I've plated over the fuel tank at the bottom of the locomotive, which happened again per the prototype, and that was something that Backman have not captured on their tooling at all. The locomotive has had the head code boxes blacked out, and I have also added the, I don't know what you call them, square oval style buffers. Square oval, does that even make sense? No, probably not. I've added those buffers on there as the locomotive was carrying these at the time that I wanted to model it. I've also weathered it and toned it down, as you can see there. So this locomotive is going to be dual purpose. It will pull freight on this layout, and it'll also pull my set of BR Blue Mark IIs, which I've acquired to go with it. I think it's a really nice addition to the fleet. As I said, it was quite an expensive one. I knew I wanted to carry out heavy modifications to it, which is why I wasn't so keen on paying 170 quid for a limited edition loco and then ripping it up. But having spent a little bit less, I've come to terms with it a tad more. But yeah, this is one of my favourite locos now on the layout. I always find mainline blue a really tricky livery to weather for some reason. I don't know why. I've done it with one of my other locos a few years back, and it just came out horribly. But this I'm quite pleased with. So that's the two main new pieces of rolling stock I've got. I have had a few more locomotives as well, but they're nothing quite as exciting as these two, so I'm not going to bother talking you through those. You may see them in future running sessions. So I will close this video out now with a brief running session, just showing you a couple of bits and pieces moving. We'll get the Virgin HST running, and we'll take some shots of it running through the new scenic work that I've carried out. I will then try and come back to you fairly soon with more videos. Video that I want to produce next is probably around the fuel point and getting that sorted. That's next on the list, so that's quite an important one to do, and hopefully that'll be out soon. Just before I go, I'd like to quickly mention the Swansea Model Railway Group exhibition, which is coming up on the 21st and 22nd of September, which is a couple of weekends time. It's at Pentre Havard School. If you check out the club's website, I'll put a link in the description. You can see the kind of stuff that's coming to the show. I'll be taking Bradwell Point. I've actually organised this show with a friend of mine, Scott Rhodes, who's actually the guy that runs Oxford Rail at the moment. We've worked together to put the show on. We've worked really hard on it and got some really good stuff coming. I find with model shows you tend to go and there's not really much modern image stuff there, but me being a modern image fan, I've taken care of that this year. There's a lot of modern image stuff going, so if you like this layout, there's going to be stuff there that you'll like. So please do try and make the trip down and have a look at it. I can pretty much guarantee you this is going to be the best show in South Wales. We've got some really good layouts going. We've got Oak Road by Mike Buick. We've got Oak Lane TMD by Greg Marshall. We've got Reedham by Steve Cox. All layouts that you should look up and have a little view of. We've got other stuff coming as well, like Dubmill sidings, and there's Bradwell Point, my layout, obviously. We got lots of steam era layouts coming as well. I think there's 20 plus layouts coming, so please do try and come and have a look. We're really looking forward to the show. It's going to be the best one that there's been in Swansea, and it was 100% the best show that you get to see in South Wales. So please do come along. I'm going to try and make a good video of that, capturing the setup and what we do with it. Perhaps try and speak to a few of the guys running the layouts there, get some interviews and see how we get on. But yeah, I look forward to that. That's coming up in a couple of weekends time, so I am really looking forward to it. I will now leave you with a running session, nothing too long, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. Keep adding your comments and adding your likes, etc. It really is appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. You can always get notifications then when I upload new videos. I know it's not that often that I do upload videos. I'd say probably once a month, maybe twice a month if you're lucky, but at least you'll know when they're coming up, and hopefully I can start to make content a bit more regular. But thanks again for bearing with me, and I really do hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.